If I was grateful, I'd say thank you. This is just a little bit overwhelming for me. Steve and I talked about it. I don't tend to be without words, and I'm just overwhelmed. The book says the fellowship grow up about you. Here we are. Here we are. I like to open everything I do with a quotation from Lois Wilson, who was asked what she did in a moment of silence. She said, "I invite God to the meeting." And I'm going to take a moment and ask you to do that. Just take a couple of moments and let's just acknowledge the presence of deity. Amen. Thank you. I am overwhelmed. I am not a volunteer here. I'm a conscript. I was instructed to do this by my sponsor. Thank you, I suppose. And I'm going to tell you also, among others, I have a central nervous system disorder called essential tremors. My hands shake, and I have an involuntary negative shake of my head. Every once in a while it just does this, and I don't even know it. So it's going to look like I disagree with what I'm saying. I don't. I may later because I'm still learning. But if I say it today, I actually mean it. So I want you to know that. And I want to thank Roger again for coming to record this. I might not be here if it hadn't been for people like him. And if we don't financially support guys like that, one of the sad day will come when these things are not recorded. And I think that would be a crime against humanity. I've never prayed more before one of these things. I've never been more moved to be able to stand before you. So many of my heroes are in this room, absolute heroes. And I'm so grateful and honored to just to stand before you. And the story hasn't changed much, and I'm grateful for that. You know. But so I guess I'll just talk about it a little bit. I used to be bad to drink, and it didn't start till I was 18 years old. And I was out with the boys. I was going through fraternity rush in college, and I was out with the boys, and they walked into a bar, and I followed them into the bar, and they ordered a beer. I ordered the same brand of beer they did. I'm the chameleon. And we started drinking. I don't like the beer. I don't think anything about it except I do it with them. And as we approached the bottom of this first beer, I'm thinking, let's get out of here. They ordered another beer. Of course, you know what I did. Ordered another beer. And by the time the second one hit bottom, I got the magic that all alcoholics understand. And the earthlings do not understand it because it doesn't do that for them. They just waste everything they drink. They shouldn't do it. And I just got taller, and you guys know how I do this. Like most of you have heard me do this before. Who got taller when they drank? Taller, put them up taller, better looking, right? Pimples fell right off. Expert on many subjects. Expert on subjects I never heard of and can't spell. Yeah. And now I could talk to the girls. Whoa, yeah. I found out later that it worked for them too. They could listen to that garbage. I mean, this is the magic juice right here. Yeah. Fantastic dancer. Dancers, yeah. Yeah. And I got all of that for 2 beers. And I didn't get to the big piece yet. The big piece was for something deep inside me for the first time went, and I could breathe. It was okay to be me. Never had been. And I chased it hard. I zipped through a 4-year college in 5 years and 2 summer schools. Where are you? Yeah, oh yeah, a lot of extended educators here. And joined the Air Force. We flew in training the last 6 months. We flew the T-38, which Tom Cruise thought was a MiG in the original Top Gun movie, the black airplane. I've got over 100 missions in that. And it was brake release at 40,000 feet in 3.5 minutes. Has a roll rate of 720 degrees a second. Yeah, that's 2, like this. Yeah, your eyeballs won't track that if you're sober. Trust me, I tried it both ways. I would finish flying for the day, and I used to get drunk intentionally a lot. I'm going out to get drunk tonight. And if you're not going out to get drunk, I don't want you along. You're going to be a problem later. You've been out with those guys, yeah. And but did you ever get drunk by accident on a night when you're sure you weren't? Who got accidentally drunk on a night when they were sure they wouldn't? Okay. So I'm talking about a particular night. I know cold, hard fact I'm not going to get drunk tonight. Because tomorrow morning I'm going to be number 2 in a 2-ship formation. I didn't fly with the Thunderbirds, they flew this plane. And as we're breaking ground at 180 miles an hour and the wheels are coming up, I'm going to slide up under his tail. My airplane is white. When we land, the top foot of the tail of my plane would be black from his exhaust. If I could stand up on my cockpit, I can almost touch his afterburner. I'll be that close, doing as much as 700 miles an hour, pulling as many as 7 Gs. You'd have to be insane to get drunk tonight before going to do that. And so I know I'm not going to get drunk. But I do want to socialize other pilots in my squadron. Fill in the blanks for me. So I'm going to drop by the club and have one no more than. Should be home by 6:30, no later than. 7. You bet. You bet. That's what you told her on the phone, right? Yeah. And but what happens is by the time I get to the bottom of the second one, it could be anything behind the bar, but by the time I get to the bottom of the second one, I think I changed my mind. It's not what happened. What happened was I got this craving Soper talks about. But I don't know that. I think I changed my mind. Yeah, bartender, I know I said I was going home, but I'm watch one more quarter of the ball game, set them up again. I tell you what, Jack, rack them up. We'll shoot just a couple of more games, 2 more over here. And so I go to plan B, a couple more. I don't know when I go from plan B to plan C, which is the lights blink and it's time to go home, and they close the bar at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I drive home drunk with a hand over one eye. Did you ever drive with a hand over one eye? Who drove with a hand over one eye? Yeah. I had one of our members tell me one time that he was afraid a cop would see that. So he made himself some drunk driving glasses. He kept them in his glove compartment. He spray painted one lens black. Just put those babies on. Didn't even have to put the hand up. And this other guy said he was also afraid a cop would see it. So he had a piece of duct tape and he would put that over one eye. I wonder what a cop would have. This is your gene pool if you're new here. These are your people, okay? And I drive home drunk. I walk in, my first wife rips into me. I go into the bathroom for my after drinking chores. Who puked? Pukers? Yeah? Out your nose. Who puked out your nose? Okay. Who quit forever? If you puked out your nose, put your hand back up. Yeah. Who quit? Yeah, now we're in the South. We're going to get a lot of them here. I did this up in Yankee Land a while back, and my hand was the only one up. Who quit forever in front of somebody with one hand on the Bible? Yeah, see, we got maybe 25% on that, yeah. Who peed in the closet? Did you really? I never did that. I'm very embarrassed for you. I don't believe I'd have told that in public myself. You might want to talk to your sponsor about the difference between a sharing and a meeting and a fist step. They're not the same, you know. And although my first wife is still mad about that antique coffee table that used to be in the living room, I'll give you that. And our gang, we haven't been able to do it for the last 3 years because of COVID, but it is our custom here in Nashville for these gentlemen that I hang with. On New Year's Day, we go into the jail, and we do what we call our unusual places panel. We talk about unusual places where we have urinated, vomited, or come out of blackouts. And it's hilarious. I can't think of a better way to spend New Year's Day. And I didn't want to get into corrections. I was sober just under a year, and my sponsor said, "You're finished in public information forever. You're a promoter, and we don't do that. You'll now take me into the jail." I said, "Jerry, I've never even been arrested." I have a news flash for you. Spargate boys in the jail already know how to get arrested. They're not going to need your help with that. Rarely we've seen a person in jail who has thoroughly followed our path. You can show them how not to come back. And I've been doing corrections since, and it's been a great joy to me. I had an experience a number of years ago. I was sitting having lunch at a little restaurant, and this fellow walks up to my table, and he says, "You don't remember me, do you?" I look up at this guy, and I said, "If I should, I'd like to apologize. I don't know you." And he said, "You came into a prison I was in a few years ago, and you spoke, and I heard you, and I believed you. I'm doing what you said. I'm never going to be incarcerated again for the rest of my life. I'd like to thank you for my freedom." Yeah. And I've never smoked it, drank it, or slept with it. Gave me anything near what that gives me. I've had that one more than once. And if you haven't, do yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor. Boy, there's nothing like it. I think 12-step work counts more if it's inconvenient. There's something about that, and I can't explain that either. Anyway, I didn't earn it, but I was a very gifted pilot. I was just one of those guys. I was a natural. By the time I'd been in a plane 5 or 6 times, I felt like it was part of me. I could make it do anything. And I finished at the top of my pilot training class. My next duty station, I flew a 4-engine jet all over the world. I've been drunk on 5 continents and quite a few islands. And I flew that airplane around the world twice in the same month. People are saying the world is flat, it's round. I checked twice. And you tell them to call me. I was there. And I was then sent to Southeast Asia. I flew the original side-firing gunship, Puff the Magic Dragon, in the Delta. They phased that plane out, and I was flying an intelligence mission over Laos. And the president was on TV a couple times a week saying, "We're not in Laos." Yeah, we're flying a mission that's classified top secret with what they call a suffix. That means it's so classified you're not even supposed to pray about it because God doesn't have a high enough security clearance, is what that means. And I'm not proud to tell you that I was so drunk at 4 o'clock one morning taxiing my plane out that when I get to the far end of the taxiway where I'm supposed to turn and come out and take off into the wind, I hadn't puked yet that night, and that was unusual. And I had my window open just in case I puked. I could puke out of the plane. I can remember thinking how smart I was. Does this scene sound smart to you right now? It doesn't to me right now, but it did then. And when I got to the end of the taxiway, I applied the brakes very smoothly because I didn't want to jostle myself. I applied them so smoothly I didn't stop the plane, and we taxied off into the weeds off the end of the taxiway. In the manual, it says for use on pavement and in the air only. They do not want that out in the weeds. They're real finicky about where those planes go, aren't they, Mark? Yeah. And if there'd been another plane taxiing behind mine, if it had been 4 in the afternoon instead of 4 in the morning, if there'd been a rock, a ditch, a stump out there, somebody else would be with you guys, and I would still be in a military prison. I'm not trying to impress you, just simply tell you that's what alcoholism does to nice people like us. It has us disrespect the things we care the most about and tear the hearts out of the people that love us the most. The disease is greedy. It wants it all, and it'll get it all if I don't do absolutely everything to stop it. Everything. I don't get to pick and choose anymore. Anyway, I'm just uncaught. I'm just simply uncaught. And at my last duty, I came back from Southeast Asia, and at my last duty station, I was an instructor pilot on a 4-engine jet with a worldwide mission. I was 26 years old. I just had the gift. And most people don't get to live their dream. I get to throw mine away. I resigned my commission and walked away. And it probably saved my life, and maybe quite a few more. I don't tell this very often, but I was coming out of Tokyo for Anchorage, Alaska. It's an 8-hour run. I had 100,000, maybe 120,000 pounds of jet fuel. And at 1,000 feet, I raised the flaps too fast and too soon, and I almost stalled it. I almost wrecked that airplane into the city of Tokyo with 100,000 pounds of jet fuel. You know, we think about the lives we put at risk. I think I get their trophy on, 10,000 people, 20? How many would I have killed that night? I don't talk about that very much. But that's what alcoholism does to nice people like us. It's exactly what it does. And anyway, I resigned my commission. I got a job as a sales rep in the summer of 1984. My boss said to me, "You're going to treatment right now or you're fired." He was a great communicator. No, he really was. He could explain things. He really had a gift. And June 28, 1984, which was my 41st birthday, it's also my sobriety date, I signed to a little charm school outside of Atlanta, Georgia, to overcorrect for a problem I didn't have. That's how I came to you. And it wasn't the staff there. It was you. It was sitting in the day room listening to you tell the truth about how you drank and drugged to let me see the truth about how I did. I've got 2 brain cells left. One of them creates BS, the other one buys it. And I've been believing my own BS forever. And you guys cut through that for me. I am what they call tri-addicted. We used to hear that all the time. I'm addicted to everything I tried. And I tried quite a few things. And I could afford my addictions in that day. And I came to you with a pretty good load on. And I didn't sleep the first 3 nights I was in treatment. I'm laying there the 4th night knowing I ain't gonna sleep again. And it stays dark a long time at night if you're just laying there, you know. and not drinking, and I mean, it's nights are long. And I don't remember exactly. Lights out at 11, got to stay in that bed till 6 in the morning. Short bathroom breaks. I said, I got to lay there. And I'm laying there. And what I'm going to tell you happened to me, I didn't do this. I began to see my life as you would see a series of very short movies. And I began to look at something I never looked at, and that was the worst thing I'd ever done. I'd always been able to stop that before. My good Tennessee neighbor Jack Daniels knows how to stop that for me. My Spanish-speaking friend Jose Cuervo, he knows how to help me with that. Not laying in a bunk in a treatment center. My old girlfriend Mary Jane, I mean, those people used to help me with that, and they weren't there. And I got this horrible thing I've done all over me, and I can't get anything between me and that, and I can't get it to turn off. And I reached what I was going to call bottom for the next 30 years. One of the men I sponsored changed my definition of bottom not too long ago. But I got to the place where I would have paid any price and done anything not to be me anymore. To get out from under that guilt, I'd have done absolutely anything. And from in here, it did not happen in my mind, and my throat didn't move. From in here screamed, and it was loud. It was internal, but it was loud to God. I'm pretty sure I didn't believe it. God, forgive me. And what I'm going to tell you happened in the next instant. You've had x-rays taken of your teeth. When the dentist picks up that lead apron off of you, something like that was laying all over me. I was unaware of it. It flew off of me. And my body felt so light, I thought I was going to float off the bed. It did not scare me. At the same instant, this magnificent white light came on, shining just on me and on my bed. And the light had a texture and a warmth, and I could feel it in every cell of my body. And I was aware of every cell of my body at the same instant. There appeared behind me a partition about a foot behind me. It was white. It came within about a foot of the ceiling. And the light was coming over, but it was all focused just on me. I've never seen light do that. There were, at various places in the wall, it looked like pieces of glass about the size of my hand here and there. I think I remember a yellow one, I think maybe a pale green. The light was coming through and it was all shining just on me and on my bed. And I knew God was right there. And I lay there in the presence of infinite love. And I used to say, God forgave me then, but I don't speak for God, and I don't like to be around people that do. I know I received his forgiveness then. I don't know if he ever judged me. I cannot respond. I lay there in the presence of infinite love, and I don't know how long. And I'll tell you, too, with my eyes closed, I can see that room in better detail. I can see this one now. And I lay there for a while in his presence. And if I could go back there right this second, I would go. I understand where Bill chased trying to get back to his white light experience. He tried all kinds of things. I understand that. If I had something else to try, I would try it. This is the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. And it was like I was floating in his love. There's no way to there are things that happen on the spiritual plane that cannot be explained on the physical, and this is just one of those. And I don't know how long I lay there. What we call time does not exist in that presence. It just simply doesn't. I know that, and I'm not aware of anything else that passed between us, except I received his forgiveness and I basked in his love. And I must have slept, because the next morning I woke up, I had not done that in several days. And I woke up wanting to be one of his guys. That was my first cornerstone. And a lot of people think they've been robbed because they didn't get one of those. This is page 12 in Bill's story. But soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly those on myself. I don't speak for Bill either. I'll tell you, I do not think that event would have gotten me the 39-year chip that's in my pocket right now. Recovery is not an event. There are a lot of events in it, but it's a process, and there's no end. There's no last one. There's no last lesson, which is some of the most exciting stuff I've ever come across. That this is always neat stuff coming. There's always more coming. I zipped through a 28-day treatment program in 6 weeks flat. I've always picked things up quickly. And I came back to Nashville, and the only person I knew in recovery in this city was one of my customers, and I didn't want him to know. If you don't recognize that, that's newcomer thinking, terminal case. I will die from what's going on here really soon if I get some help. And I said, I'll follow the aftercare plan. I went to 90, I went to 87 meetings. One night, I can't remember a couple of them, but one night I'm about to leave for the meeting, and my son fell and injured himself put him in the car and went to the emergency room. And that was the right thing, we know that. And I thought if you miss, you just miss, because I can't figure out all by myself. You go to 2 meetings in the night, because I've got this minor case of terminal newcomer thinking. And anyway, I did everything that they said. I'm going to give you the 2 best kept secrets in AA, by the way. Here's the first one. The directions for doing a 4-step have been very cleverly concealed in the pages of this book. That secret was so well kept that the treatment center I went through did not have that information. And I completed their alleged 4-step. And I called down to the treatment center to Bernie. Now, Bernie had not been my counselor, but he was a counselor there. And I had my big white light experience, and I see those steps. I know I'm going to have to do them. I see that 5th-step confession coming, who to do it with. Bernie is the perfect choice, because I can look at him until he's stoned out of his mind. You know what it looks like when somebody's stoned, right? His face is real relaxed. He got this dumb grin when he walks. He just sort of shuffles. You know what it looks like. So I asked him, he said, sure. So I completed their alleged 4-step, and I drove down to Atlanta, and I took my 5th-step with Bernie, and I told him the whole truth, and that's where I began to get relief. And as an aside, Bernie was not actually stoned. He was sober for 20 years. That was serenity. I didn't know what it looked like. And I had a few things wrong when I got here. I went to an old timer and I said, you guys said by the time I was sober a year that my sleeping patterns will level out, and they haven't. And he said, I just watched you drink 2 big cups of coffee here at 8 o'clock at night at a meeting. And I said, caffeine doesn't affect me. And he said, if you drink a quart of scotch a day and smoke 6 or 8 joints, it won't. And I said, oh. I've been sleeping pretty good since, not that night. And I knew to the depths of my soul that caffeine didn't affect me. I wonder as I stand before you, how many things I know for absolute certain and sure are actually incorrect. I wonder how many there are. I heard a definition of humility the other day that I really liked, and it was being wrong gracefully so that I can learn something. I've discovered that a given event can produce either humiliation or humility in me. If I'm in my ego, I'll be humiliated, I'll hate you for pointing it out, and I'll look for ways to get back at you. If I'm in my spirit, I'll thank you and look for the lesson. It depends on where I am, which one of those I'm going to get into. Pretty wild stuff. I was looking for a sponsor I could relate to, which I think may be the single dumbest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, I'm a newcomer and I can't figure out you go to 2 meetings a day. Who can I relate to? Yeah, right. What I needed was a sponsor whose suggestions I would follow. Why would I do that? I want to look like he looks. I want to sound like he sounds. I want my life to work like it looks like his life is working. And there stood a guy named Jerry Crow. And we're graduates of the same university. Maybe I can relate to him. Would you sponsor me? Oh, and he's sober 5 years, and when he talks, the voices in my head shut up, and that was rare. And would you sponsor me? And he said, well, we'll see. Here's your first assignment. Assignment? I thought a sponsor like a new best friend going to introduce me around, maybe loan me some money, fix my wife. I was wrong about quite a few things, and it took me a week, and I don't have time to tell it now. Catch me at a break. I'll be glad to tell you what it was. It took me a week. I said, Jerry, I did the assignment. Sponsor me. He said, I'll sponsor you. He was the nicest guy in the world, too, right up until I asked him to sponsor me. And then sometime in that week that it took me to do that first assignment, he had been to the Nashville Zoo, and he got a transfusion of tiger blood. And he was a whole different guy. And he had this tremendous ego to cut through. And the man saved my life. I wish I thanked him one more time. And he said, I'll sponsor you my way. I said, what does that mean exactly? He said, you're too sick to stay sober on the fellowship of AA. You will need the program also. I got no idea what he's talking about. And he gave me the best kept secret in AA, which is the definition of the program. Of course, the way we keep it secret, we read it at most of the meetings. It's on page 59, right before step 1, where it says, here are the steps we took was suggested as a program of recovery, no steps, no program. My favorite definition of insanity is thinking you're in the 12-step program and not actually taking all 12. I would like to propose that if you have not taken all 12, you're not in a 12-step program. You spend a weekend with us, you need some kind of help. You might want to try that. Anyway, he scared me. He said, you will work the 12 steps. The way I laid them out, at the pace I set her, I will drop you like a bad habit because I don't work with losers. And I'm going to tell you, he was only rough with me till I finally surrendered to him. He was trying to save my life, and he had a phenomenal ego to try to get through. And he scared me so bad the truth jumped out of me. I don't know about you, but I say the truth for emergencies. I don't spread it around real thick. I heard a line in a country song one time say, "You'll never catch me in a lie. I'll tell you the truth at my own pace." Yeah, and that's just my kind of thing. And but the truth jumped out. I said, "Jerry, I don't want to do the steps." He said, "That's okay." I said, "Oh, good." He said, "As long as you do them." "Jerry, I don't think we're communicating." He said, "Yeah, we are." He'd been hearing the word willingness. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Here's the definition. Willingness is when you do what I, as your sponsor, tell you, when you don't like it and you don't think it will work and you don't think it matters and you don't want to do it and you do it anyway." It is that do it anyway that defines willingness. It also, I think, defines bottom and surrender. I think they all have the same definition. And I just said, and so I don't like how this is going, so I hit him with my Sunday punch. I said, "Why?" When I ask why, I am never looking for an answer. I'm looking for something I can argue with, manipulate, fight, change. Never looking for an answer. I've been doing this a long time. I have yet to hear a spiritual question begin with the word why. I haven't heard one yet. And he knew that. And he said, "I don't answer why questions to men I sponsor. And the reason is why is a management question. The first step says you're not in management. Consequently, all the questions begin with why have the same answer. The answer is you don't need to know." I hated that. Today I embrace it's one of my cornerstones. I thought it was not knowing that made me crazy. Incorrect. It was needing to know that made me crazy. When I was able to lay down the need to know, I got peaceful. From a position of peace, I began to know. And the knowing isn't worth anywhere near as much as the peace. But I didn't have any of that at the time. He said, "I'm feeling kind of generous this morning. Sparky, I'm going to give you one why question. Don't ever ask another one for the rest of your life. The reason you have to do the 12 steps is because the alcohol and drugs are not your problem." What? They're not. They're your answer. Make you taller, smarter, better. They do all that stuff for you. That's why you couldn't put them down. We say to a guy like you, "Put that stuff down." We have not said put down your problem. We said put down the only answer you've ever known. This is the lubricant of life. This is why your skin fits. Put that down. And when you do, you can't leave it down because it wasn't your problem, it was your answer. So to put that down and leave it down, you must pick up a new answer that's better than the old answer. And I'm saying why every time a man takes a breath. And he said our program, 12 steps, is kind of like going to the dentist. We got to drill before we can fill. What the first 9 steps are about, digging that poison out of your soul. If we just fill with the good stuff, the poison's still in there. It's going to detonate one of these days and going to make a terrible mess. Like the dentist, we got Novocaine. Here we call it sponsorship, fellowship, home group, love. It's not near as hard as the way you've been living. And I just kept saying why, and this is where he got me. He said, "Think of yourself as a garbage can." I got that, Jerry. What we're going to do with these steps is we're going to dump you out. We're going to scrub the can nice and clean and stand it back up. We're going through your life. Most of it's garbage. We're going to toss it. Portions are good. For example, do you love your children? I said, a lot. He said, wonderful. We'll keep that. Finish these steps, you'll be a big, empty, clean can, just a little good stuff in the bottom. The reason is one of these days, something very heavy is going to slam into your heart. He said, your father's going to die. And on that day, you got a little good stuff in the bottom. But in that day, if you don't have that big, empty, clean space to store that pain in, well, we love you back to spiritual health, you will escape. And the only escapes you know are killing you and tearing the hearts out of the people that love you, and I ran out of why. And I allowed the men to coach me through the 12 steps. And I got what I think is the most powerful promise in the book. It's the first line, that's page 60. It says 12. Having had a spiritual awakening is the result of these steps. I hear people read A result. It's not what it says. A is one of several, one of many. The is singular. Promise me one thing is the result of the steps. Spiritual awakening. So in my experience, it's spiritually awakened alcoholics do not drink beverage alcohol, and they don't ever get thirsty if you're new. I don't think our mission is to change you so you never drink or drug again. It's not the mission. It's to change you so you never want to again. And that's what happened to me. Somewhere in that, and I ran out of why, and I let the men coach me through them, and that's what happened to me. Somewhere in that process, I got spiritually awakened, but there's no end to that. Like this morning, I was asleep. But the next moment I was awake. And I stepped out of the bathroom the first time, I was more awake. When I finished my first set of prayers and meditations, I was more awake. When I finished my first cup of coffee, I was more awake. Stepped out of the shower, I was more awake. I think a spiritual awakening is of that nature. And there's no last one. There's always another one. but I can go back to sleep spiritually too. I don't want to bother my sponsor with that. He's awfully busy, and everybody cheats on their taxes, and I don't think anybody will know, and it's a white lie, and I can go back to sleep spiritually. So I think it's important for me to stay active spiritually. I'm 80 years old. If I get still for very long, I go to sleep. I can't afford to go back to sleep spiritually. The price on that's too high. I can't afford it. He was right. Some of you are aware of this. I'm sure you know my daughter's just fine. I spoke to her on the way over here. But on the night of the 4th of July of 1990, my daughter fired a pistol into her mouth, and it went off. And I found her the next morning in a pool of blood in her bed. And I don't usually tell this. I'm no hero here. I'm just, like Mr. Krogan says, I'm a satisfied customer. I knelt at her bed looking at that, and she was a nightmare looking. I mean, she just, and I said, God, if it's your will to take her, take her. If it's your will for her to stay here a mess, okay. If it's your will for her to recover, okay, thy will be done. Because of what you had done for me, I was able to hold the most precious thing in my life in an open hand to a God who was worthy of that. I hope you're not called on to do that. And I hope I'm not again. But I was able to at that time. And we raced to Vanderbilt Hospital. By dark that night, the lobby looked just like this. Some of you were there. And there were a couple of hundred of us. I don't know how long that prayer meeting went on. They told us for the first 3 days that she will not live. This is a successful suicide. She's just not dead yet. You will bury her this week. Those are hard words. I'm going to tell you what, 3 days is a long time to sit there. And she's conscious now. She was unconscious when I found her. She's conscious now. But she's got a breathing tube. She can't talk. But she can squeeze your hand once for yes and twice for no, and she don't want to die anymore. And 3 days is a very, very long time. And I believe if I had not had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, the man that came to you in the summer of 1984 was probably capable of first-degree murder. And it didn't have to happen. It did not have to happen. Sometime over the first few days, I went home and packed a bag and moved into Vanderbilt Hospital. And I didn't leave there for 60 days, and neither did you. There was not a time in the next 60 days, I want to remember my home group as close as I am to Steve right here. 60 days, 24 hours a day, minimum, one of you, right there. Somebody must have put together a schedule. Sometimes there was 6 or 8 of you. I was never alone. You can pretend to care, you can't pretend to show up. And you guys showed up. And my daughter's doing just fine. I've sponsored a couple of guys whose sons died. And one of them was national news for 2 years. I didn't think we were ever going to get to the end of that. And that's what we did with them. We just show up. We just show up. It's phenomenal what happens when you just show up. And you guys held me. And you held me when I cried. I had been taught to cry. I came to you I had not cried since 1967. When I came to you in the summer of '84, I hadn't shed a single tear. And about 2 years into this thing, I'm watching this guy in my home group, and he's crying in most of the meetings. And I said, man, tell me about the tears. He says, somebody says something beautiful and it touches my heart and I weep. And it feels so good. And I said, I can't cry. He said, I'll teach you. And he did. And I can't cry on purpose. I cried. I stood out here alone in my final prep for this thing, and I cried talking to God about standing here before you men who I love so much. And I can't cry on purpose, but boy, if something moves me, I will cry. If you can't cry, if you'd like to learn to cry, see me. I wrote it up. I'll be happy to share it with you. I do need to warn you, however, if you start crying at appropriate times and places, you'll attract a lot of women. Do not call me and complain about this, because I warned you at the gate. I told you at the very beginning, it's going to happen. I'm telling you right now. They see right through that John Wayne act you're doing. And they see a guy in touch with his emotions that lights him up. We're going to talk about something else now. What had happened a couple of months before my daughter shot herself, is my first wife was screaming at me one more time. She used to control me with my guilt, and I was guilty. And I went through these 12 steps. I got my innocence back, and she couldn't control me. It made her crazy. And she was screaming at me one more time. I get this moment of clarity. And I realized I'm just before punching her in the face. And when she goes down, I'm going with her. She's on the way to the hospital. I'm on the way to the jail. It's a bad plan. I worked it out all by myself, which is a good thing. Wasn't anybody else there. And I didn't about face while she was still screaming, and walked out, got in the car, and drove away. Started looking. 48 hours later, I moved into a little apartment because it was imminent. And I went to Old Timers and said, what should I do? Because I don't believe in divorce, and yet if I stay with her, she's going to push that button hard enough one of these days, and I'm going to take her apart. And they said, turn it over. I said, how? And got real quiet. Nobody could answer. And you believe what you like. I believe what I'm about to tell you. I went to the source. And I said, I don't understand. What? And the first thing I got was the answer as to what it is that I turn over. And the answer is the result. All right, how do I do that? One, I stand today where he is. There's one who has all power, the one is God, may find him now. I stand today where he is. And two, I operate within his principles. I want to talk about that some tomorrow. I'm not worried about my motive at all. Good motive may be the most evil thing that's ever come to planet Earth, and I'll defend that tomorrow. We'll talk about it. So I stand today where he is and operate within his principles, and that way I turn it over to him. But the other thing that I got there was 3 prayers, and I prayed them every day. First prayer, God, if it's your will for us to be together, put us together. Second prayer, if it's your will for us to be apart, put us apart. Those are the easy ones. Here's the big one. God, if it's your will for me not to know today, please leave me not knowing. When I can pray that one and mean it, I can have my first sponsor's definition of serenity. He said, serenity is not freedom from the storm. Serenity is peace in the middle of the storm. The only way to have that is to give up your need to manage the storm. The only way to do that is to know the manager of all storms. That's what this thing is about for me. And I was able to pray that prayer and mean it every day for about 10 months. And then one day I knew. And we split up. Sometime later, many of you know Miss Linda. She and I courted and dated and married. And it went well for a while. And we both made some mistakes. I'm going to talk about mine. In the summer of 2004, I started getting involved in internet pornography. And I couldn't tell anybody. I've got an alter ego I call Saint Scott of the microphone. And he's every bit as ugly as you might imagine. And I was the Saturday night speaker at the big conferences and all that, so I became very impressed with myself. And I just got sicker and sicker, and I got this persona that I'm defending. And I couldn't tell my sponsor, I couldn't tell my road dogs, couldn't tell anybody. Sandy Beach was not talking about relapse when he said, the measure of my recovery is not whether I get off the path. We all get off the path. The measure of my recovery is how quickly I get back on. I don't think the first step in a bad direction is a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal at all. It's the second one. If I take the first step in a bad direction and I take it to my sponsor and my road dogs and I come clean with it, the second step never happens, or the third or the 25th. It doesn't happen. That's what that rigorous honesty thing is about. Don Major used to say, rigorous honesty is for me, about me. For you, it's compassionate honesty. For me, it has to be rigorous. That's what that is. Anyway, I didn't tell anybody. And I got sicker and sicker, and eventually I violated my marriage vows. And I got caught, and if you're doing something you know you shouldn't do, quit worrying about what you're going to do if you get caught, because that ain't a if question. It's a when question. And we tried to hold it together for a couple of years, and she finally divorced me. And the color went out of my life. I was literally living in black and white. Wall Street Dan, who couldn't be here this weekend, took my guns away from me. I moved into his house. He probably saved my life. Joe Krogan hired me to do a job he knew I couldn't do, and he paid me for a year. How do you repay that? These are the people. These are the people I know here. I know who you are. I saw what you did. Don't tell me. I'm a word merchant myself. Show me. You showed me. And anyway, eventually Linda and I get back together. When Sandy died in the fall of 14, Linda had something going on in Florida, which I was working down there, and she called me, and we she said, let's just get together away from everybody else, and it was just great. And it stayed great for a while. We moved in together, actually at this exit. She owns a beautiful place on the other side of the interstate down there, right on the Piney River. And I was diagnosed with cancer in my throat in June of 20. They took my teeth because they said they're going to do so much radiation to my face that they're going to kill my jawbone. And the doctor said, you can't have live teeth in a dead jawbone. There's a tremendous danger in that eventually the jawbone will begin to disintegrate. So the first thing they did was take my teeth. And then I went through the radiation and chemo, which is just rough as it can be. And I was asked how did I do that, because I think I had a fairly decent attitude through that whole thing. And the answer was two pieces. One is I stayed in today. I worked hard. I've got three vocabularies: speaking, praying, and thinking. I've got to get the word today active in all three of those and quit figuring out the rest of my life and not borrow pain from the past or future. Oh, it's been going on so long. It's borrowing pain from the past. Oh, I don't know how much longer I can do this, borrowing pain from the future. I didn't do either one of those. And I just stayed in today. I just stayed in today. My throat was so red from the radiation. One day I walked into the doctor, he looked at me and said, I just can't do it to you today. I just can't. He just put salve on me and sent me home. On two different occasions, I got down into depression while that was going on. I think worry and anxiety and fear and depression are all different levels of the same mistake, which is trading a perfectly good right this moment for a bad deal at some time in the future that may not happen. That's what those things are for me. I had a couple of phone calls a few years ago from a couple of our members who, and they did not know each other. These happened a couple of months apart, but they were both about to leave an insane asylum after a very serious suicide attempt. And they just called me to talk, and I asked them two questions. Were you staying in today mentally? No. Were you thinking about yourself all the time? Yes. And so I just did the prescription out of the big book. I've read this thing quite a few times. I'm fascinated by this thing. I'm going to talk about some of the new stuff that's in the book tomorrow. And yeah, I know. Yeah. And it's just absolutely amazing to me. But the single theme that I find runs wider and deeper in this book than any others is be of service / help others. Same thing. I read the book one time from Roman numeral 11 through Dr. Bob's story, looking specifically for places that it said either be of service or help others. I counted 52 places. It just doesn't seem to matter what's going on with me. The answer is for me to help you. It makes no sense, and it works. And when I got into those dark places, I picked up the phone and called you, and I said, how are you doing? How can I be of service? What can I do to lift your life? And when I did that, it lifted mine. The incoming tide lifts all boats, and I want that tide to be made of love. I was told whatever I want for myself, I should give to everybody else. I want to be loved, and I want to be joyful. So I try to spend my days spreading love and joy, and that's how I got through that. And I've had the privilege since then. I've had an awful lot of people, members of our fellowship and other fellowships, call me and say, how did you get through that? I was able to share that with them. That's what you do. And I told the men I sponsor, I said, as usual, your first thought's wrong. You're thinking Scott's looking at this life-threatening disease. He does not need my small problems. And as usual, you're precisely wrong. Because I need to get out of myself, and there's no direct route out of me. But if I get into you as a side effect, I'm out of me. I said, I need your hangnails. Bring me your small problems. I need them desperately. Guy saved my life. Absolutely saved my life. When I destroyed my life, when Linda caught me, I dropped all the men I sponsored, and I canceled all the speaking things I had. I canceled Copenhagen. They haven't called back. I'm real upset about that. But I canceled everything. And 3 of the men I sponsor refused to go. 3 of them refused to go. Those 3 guys saved my life. Now, I know they were getting spiritual help someplace else. I didn't have any, but they would not let me go. How do you repay that? How do you pay that back? It simply can't be done. It just can't be done. I just keep trying to pass it on. It's all I know to do. That's all I know to do is to just try to pass it on. To become real, that's what I prayed about out there in the yard a few minutes ago. I asked God to help me stand here before you and just be real. To not try to impress you with all these brilliant things that I've learned, but just be real. Because that's what this whole thing is about. I tell the new people all the time, this recovery thing is about helping you evolve into who you've really always been. Been an actor all your life. It doesn't work. And I come to you and I decide, okay, I'm not going to be the actor I think you want me to be. I'm going to be who I want to be. That doesn't work either. Because that's also an act. I have to become the man that God put me here to be. And I don't get to choose that. But when I see it, I have to live into it. And one of them was learning to cry. Come on. I flew jets for the United States Air Force. Cry? Are you kidding me? How about this one? Cleaned up my language. I was proud of my profanity. I used to get out of the docks and repulse the stevedores just for practice. And I had to clean that up to become the man that I was put here to be. I'm not saying you need to. I'm saying I had to. And it has worked for me. It has worked for me. This is about me becoming real. By the time I was 6 or 8 years old, I had realized what was going to be the greatest truth in my life until I'd been with you for a while. And it was a lie. And that truth was, I'm not good enough. Nothing I ever do can ever measure up. And if you knew who I really was, you'd run me off. So I became an actor as a small boy. My act is I'm going to pretend to be the guy I think you want me to be. And I'm a different guy to everybody. I've got hundreds of personalities. I can appear to fit in anywhere, anywhere. And by the time I get to you, I've been acting so long, I don't know who stands behind the last mask. I came to you, I got sober on my 41st birthday against my will. And I knew 4 things about me at that point. I'm a raging heterosexual. I like to drive airplanes, shoot pool, and fish. They ain't had a lot for 41 years. Not a lot. And it's been a process of finding out. I think it's okay not to know, as long as I'm trying to find out. And part of how I find out is I pay attention. I get present in my own life, moment by moment. I hear myself saying things I disagree with. Have you had that one yet? That's a real beauty. Yeah, because it was part of the old act. And I say something, wait, you know what? I don't believe that anymore. That's part of how I learn. I learn by watching you and listening to you. So many of my great teachers are just sitting here. I'm just still overwhelmed to just stand here before you. I've got too much to say and not enough. We talk about the God of my understanding, and I understand where that comes from. I want to talk about the God of my experience, because that's why my God keeps getting bigger and better, is because I have more and more experience with him. That's what this whole thing is about. It's about me opening myself up to the God of forever. And there were a couple of things in the book I'm going to touch on that just mean the world to me. Page 46. It was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power which is God. I got from Bob years ago. He said, the teacup of my mind cannot contain the ocean of God. Did I quote it right? Yeah. So powerful. And to quit trying to understand God is not the assignment. Not the assignment. Further down, it says we found that God does not make too hard terms of those who seek him. Boy, that's good news. That's not what I've been told. I translate that into Tennessee English. What that says is God ain't mad at me. Really? That's not what I've been told. That's awfully good information. This idea, because if I come here with an angry God who's already judged me and I'm already going to hell, can't do steps 2 and 3. Can't be done. Had to lay that down. I needed a new concept. I needed one that would work. I was blessed with the big white light experience. It did not make me perfect. Boy, did it ever not make me perfect. I've done some of the worst things I've done sober. You heard some of them. But it put me in touch with a God who loved me, who was not willing to forgive but eager to forgive, which is something that's very powerful for me. And somebody added something. Some of you know I like to do things in treatment centers. It's meant the world to me. And I tell them, lay down your concept. Don't disbelieve, but just lay it down for a while. And let's come up with a concept that can work for you. And let's have some individual characteristics you'd like. How about eager to forgive, gentle, creative, sense of humor. I want a God that laughs and dances. Available to me 100% of the time. No breaks. Wants what's best for me, knows what it is. Somebody added one the other day, it's generous. I serve a God who is generous. I'll tell you another story. I prayed to be real. I'm going to give you another reel. It's been within the last year and a half. I have made a pretty good bit of money in my life, and both of my former wives and their lawyers are very, very pleased by that. And I don't have much of it. And some people very close to me have got more money than my first wife could spend. And that's a big number. And I've been unhappy about that. And I've talked to God about it more than once, that I just don't get it. And I'll ask you a question. And this, you want a bad attitude with 30 plus years? Here it comes. Why do you love that person so much more than you love me? And that was the question I kept taking. And eventually, whatever, he broke through, and I got a realization. The fact that I was in bad shape financially put me as a counselor in a treatment center and put me in a position for him to use me to touch literally hundreds of lives on a daily basis. And then from that, I honed some skills that I'm now using in a private practice that came out of the fact that I was broke. And don't pass the hat for me, I'm doing okay. But I'm saying against what I'm used to. And that God uses absolutely all of it, all of it. I think my entire life, all that I've been through, the stuff I liked and the stuff I didn't, all of it has been about bringing me to right here, right now, right this moment, to being the guy I am right now. The day before I got to recovery, I would have traded lives with anybody on the planet. I really would have, because mine wasn't working. The worst I could do was break even, get another one that wasn't working. I would have traded, believe me, I would have. And today I don't know anybody I'd trade with, because I have received the gift of walking in the sunlight of the Spirit, of realizing I'm royalty. I'm the son of the greatest king. I'm a prince of the kingdom. And I'm right where the king wants me. And to the best of my willingness, I'm doing exactly what I think he wants me to do. And I don't think I'll ever do any more than that. And that's good enough. That's good enough. My fear of death has been gone for quite a while. I was sober about 5 years, sitting at my desk typing one night. I got this twinge in my lower back. Within 15 minutes, I was in pain I did not know was available. I did not know you could hurt like that and still remain conscious. I was being driven to the hospital. It occurred to me that at step 3, I'd offered God my will in my life. I never had offered him my death. So I did. I said, I'm not asking to go, but if it's your will, it's my time, take me. My fear of death has been gone since then. I checked about a year ago. I didn't mean to. Barkley and I are both between wives. And or we're maybe out of the wife business, I don't know. But anyway, but we're at least between. And so we were double dating, and I am, by the way, on a liquid diet. I was on a liquid diet when I came to you. It was just a different liquid. And because they did so much to my throat, that little valve that decides whether something goes down your throat, goes into your lungs or your stomach, mine is buried in scar tissue. It's not trustworthy. And so I can't even swallow a pill. I have to crush them up and liquefy them. And so I have to be very careful about what I put in my mouth. So we were double dating. We went to a Mexican restaurant. I can eat ground beef if it's ground up really fine. I take a really small bite and wash it down with a lot of iced tea or water. And so we're doing that, and we're dating these two unfortunate ladies with us, and because we were being us. And I thought, man, this is going so good, I bet I can eat a piece of cheese. Well, I lost that bet. And it stuck halfway down. It wouldn't go up and it wouldn't go down, and I couldn't breathe. And it upset my friends very much. And I'll tell you what flashed through my mind. I guess I'm going to dine in a Mexican restaurant. I'm serious. That's what I thought. Well, I guess I'm going to die here. I had no idea I was going to cover this. If you think death has got a bad reputation, if you think about it, it really does. And as long as I thought of myself as this body, it looks like a bad deal. When I think of myself as the spirit that inhabits the body, it's a whole different ballgame. I think of death as moving day. I'm going to move out of this efficiency apartment that's kind of run down right now into a universe and more. There's a storm on the planet Jupiter, bigger, twice the size of Earth. I want to see it up close. I want to know what's there. I want to visit some of the other civilizations I know are strewn among the stars. They're there, and I want to visit them. I want to walk through the pearly gates and hug my mother again and tell her what a great mom she was. Yeah, there's nothing to fear. Death was invented by the God of love, and it is therefore good. And it has changed my life. I'm not eager. As a matter of fact, I can't even get permission to die. Two of the men I sponsor have said that I have to live another 10 years, and they keep moving the start date. And Chris and Barkley are both real bad about that. But I'm excited about it. I think it's a great adventure. I think it's a great adventure. I'll tell you this, too. When your fear of death is gone, that pretty well cleans out the fear locker. I mean, I don't leave much in there. It doesn't leave much at all. I want to tell you another story. I was having a conversation with a fellow named Jared from Montreal. It'd be worth your while to talk to him. And he said, I think love is the fifth dimension. And I said, let's talk about that a little bit. And he said, well, say we decide to meet somewhere. We're going to meet on a street corner. The width, depth, and height are defined by the street corner. And the fourth dimension, time, is when we're going to meet, so that covers that. And those dimensions are, they're not voluntary. I'm trapped in those four dimensions. I'm trapped. But he said, love is a voluntary dimension. And when I meet you there, I want the dimension of love to be there. And I'm responsible for that. I want to be in contact with the God of love. I want to have the sunlight of the Spirit on me. Every time I meet with anyone, I want the Spirit of love to be there. No matter what's going on, no matter what I think about them, I want the Spirit of love to be there. Hopefully, you're doing that too. But even if you're not, even if you're attacking me, I'm still responsible. Serving the God of love is not a part-time job. It's just not. And that's what this retreat has always been about for me. It's been about love. Some of you I've already heard several people comment about the way some of us hug. It ain't 3 pats on the back. You come to me for a hug, that's what you're going to get. And if you start thrashing around, I'm going to hang on to you till you quit thrashing. So you've been warned, because that's what this is all about. I usually end my talks by talking about my last flight in that high-performance airplane. I was leveled at 40,000 feet, and they gave me a 30-mile circle around a point on the ground with altitude block. They gave me 18 to 60, all controlled. And because if you're going to do acrobatics at 9/10 the speed of sound, they have to give you some room. And I'm doing 700 miles an hour, and I just wondered how high it would go. And they used to tell us a couple times a week not to exceed 45,000 feet in this airplane. The reason was that there are things can happen in that ultra-thin air at very high altitude that you will not recover from. Let me define not recover. That's spin, crash, burn, die, and owe them an airplane. That's not recover. But I was young and immortal. I wondered how high it would go. Came back out of afterburner because it gets very quiet if you run the engines and afterburner at high altitude because the engines are going to quit. And so I'm in military power, everything short of burner. 9/10 the speed of sound, pull the nose up a little bit, about 15 degrees back, and I'm climbing in this circle. And the answer to the question is 52,300. If she'd gone to 52.8, would have been 10 miles. She would not do the other 500 feet. We were done. And I could wash the cockpit out with a stick and nothing happened. Just barely enough wind coming over the wings at 700 miles an hour to keep her flying. I rolled out on north. I didn't mean to. I just rolled out and I looked for the first time. I'd done an instrument climb. I'd not looked outside. I'm 100 miles west of Jacksonville, out over the Florida Panhandle, on due north. And I looked up. It's 9 o'clock in the morning on a clear day. The sun is coming up over my right shoulder. The sky above me is as black as this vest through a clear canopy at 9 o'clock in the morning at 52,300. I looked out to the west and I saw the curvature of the earth. I didn't see it a little bit, I saw it. This thing we're riding is a ball. It's round, it's blue, it's beautiful. And it's just floating there, just floating. I said, tell everybody I love. I didn't say anything else. I had a physical sensation like something warm had been poured over me and ran down me like wax down a candle. And in the poem High Flight, the author says, I put out my hand and touched the face of God. I did that morning. I looked at eternity. There simply are not words. And I sat there for probably less than a minute because there's a lot of risk in that. And eased the throttle back very carefully, came down, shot one approach, and landed. And I didn't tell them. I may be the town drunk. I'm not the village idiot. I didn't get around to telling them that I had just broken the law by over a mile vertically. I didn't quite get around to telling them about it. And I didn't tell that story the whole time I was in the Air Force. And Burke Harlan was the most spiritual man I ever expected to know. And I had the privilege of speaking at his 12th birthday, and I only had 8 years. And I told that story, and I heard myself saying the telling, I don't know why I'm telling that. Of course, you do. It's my first spiritual experience. I just don't happen to notice it for 30 years because I'm not a skyrocket to success here. And you can't do something like that, and I'm going to do it again. And in 2003, 2004, my little business had a pretty good year. And went out to Nashville and International. I chartered a Learjet and put my wife and 2 kids in the back. A Lear will go to 51,000 feet. Would you like to know how I know that? Would you like to know what you can see from 51,000 feet on a clear day? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I'm planning to see the curvature of the earth again. Aren't you? Aren't you? We serve a big God. I'm learning to dream big. I'm learning to dream big. Don Pritz was one of my great teachers. I know many of you knew him. I studied under him. Boy, I hear him misquoted all the time. I never heard him say God was a gentleman. He said he learned to treat God like a gentleman. Gentlemen don't go where they're not invited. They don't stay where they're not made welcome. And we invited God, and I'm pretty sure he came. And I had the privilege of spending Don's last Thanksgiving with him, and we all knew that's what it was. It wasn't any question. He was the guy you could call with the question nobody can touch, and he answers right now. And it was principle-based always, never motive, always principle. And I was finally able to ask him the question that had been tearing me up for a long time. And our wives were sitting right here. They didn't see this happen. I said, Don, what are guys like Scott going to do when guys like Don are all gone? And this humble giant cupped his hands like this and looked at me. And he said, I have been bringing you hands full of water. Go to the river. That was the answer. Metaphorically, he said, he gained access to a wisdom and power vastly beyond his own that he believed was available to me, and I believe was available to everybody here. I stepped out of my shoes up here because we invited God. My feet could be on holy ground. We invited him. I think he came. And I want to close with the most important thing I think I've said here. I think it's the most important thing that's ever been said in an AA meeting. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. I love you.